Weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music means it's time for our weekly confab with wirepoints.org boys. All things Illinois policy related. Mentioned this in passing at the top of the hour with Bjorn Lundberg about what's going on in Germany. We were discussing their foolish energy policies that are driving down industrial production even as the welfare state grows, thanks in part to mass migration that they've welcomed. Again, North Rhine-Westphalia alone, only 10 out of 396 cities and municipalities can present a balanced budget. And the mayor of Essen, almost every German city is now on the verge of bankruptcy. Budget freezes will now have to be imposed everywhere, he's arguing. Elon Musk has opined on this too. Basically, Musk said low German birth rates plus mass migration that costs more than it generates equals broke retirees collecting empty bottles. Yeah. The pension system is a Ponzi scheme. Let's see if this sounds familiar to any place you may know. The pension system is a Ponzi scheme. You need workers paying in to cover retirees cashing out. So Germany imported millions of people hoping they'd plug the gap, but instead they're a cost center. Integration stalled, workforce participation lagged, and now the math is turning ugly. Retirees who played by the rules are getting wrecked. The taboo isn't the migration, it's admitting the economics failed. And that's basically what Elon said. This model that you thought could prop up these beautiful lies that you told, the promises you knew you couldn't keep, or you didn't consider how you might go about financing them, and you thought, well, this will be our backstop, and instead it's just accelerated the decline. Sound familiar? If it doesn't, maybe you'll take judicial notice of this editorial from the Chicago Tribune. The bond vigilantes are coming for the city of Chicago. You may not have noticed, but the city floated nearly $500 million in bonds on November 19th. 75 million of those went unsold. Goldman Sachs, a bad actor in this story, frankly, these investment banks, but I digress, who underwrote the deal, left holding $75 million after the bank couldn't find buyers for that amount. And the bonds that were sold moved only after Goldman boosted interest rates beyond what the city forecast in order to entice buyers. They're not issued to finance new spending. They're to refi the bonds that are already on the city's books, some of which were backed by sales tax revenues. But the result is that S&P downgraded Chicago's credit, which downgraded Chicago's credit earlier this year, recently slapped a negative outlook on the city's rating. Boy, that is the understatement of I know this is how the rating agencies work. It's all very deadpan. A negative is about the best description you could use to describe the city's financial future. For more on this, let's bring in our friend Mark Glennon, founder of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan, and curse you because I read that Zero Hedge article yesterday and planned on writing an article drawing a parallel to Chicago. And you've stolen my wind here.
Sorry about that. Well, you can provide all the economic detail here, but I mean, you read that and you can't help but immediately think Chicago and Illinois by extension, especially when you talk about, pension schemes that you thought this would be our backstop, and it turns out to be an albatross.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, that article said that 60% of their welfare costs are going to migrants. Not quite that bad here, but that a failed energy policy, which Europe has at least recognized and is reversing, staked on renewable energy. It's the same problems that are plaguing their cities that have hit Chicago.
And just speaking of Chicago specifically, I mean, that the bond issue earlier this month and what that means. I mean, the problem, it seems to me, is we've talked about this before. This is not the first time that Chicago has been treated to that sort of warning. And it just never seems, as long as it doesn't seize up, the costs are sort of, I wouldn't say they're hidden, but there's not an appreciation for what is happening and the trajectory of the city. It just continues to be this thing where until you see something major happen that impacts people beyond even property taxes, like pensioners not getting pension checks or taking a haircut, it just doesn't seem like it penetrates.
That's right. This problem gets dribbled out over time. The bonds that are already out there, that are already trading, get whacked in price as people get worried about Chicago. That's really not Chicago's problem. That's the bondholders' problem, and
right.
I don't particularly care about them. But the new issues, and this one was a new issue. It was a refinancing for existing debt that was already out there. The city does eat the cost of that, and each time they're going to do a new issue, they're going to pay the penalty here. In this case, they couldn't even sell at any price. Well, at the price they established, they couldn't sell the bond, so the underwriter, Goldman Sachs, got stuck holding them. That's highly unusual. I don't recall Chicago or Illinois or any major city having failed a sale that way.
Yeah, even after sweetening the interest, right? Sweetening the interest rate on it.
Right. Yeah. Normally that clears it, but it didn't clear it this time.
Well, I mean, as detailed in that Chicago Tribune editorial, there's just continuing to borrow against tomorrow to pay for yesterday, and this is not going unnoticed. And this administration seems particularly inept at keeping the plate spinning.
There's a real key there. Every commercial banker has something drilled into their head, and that is they don't lend to cover current operating expenses. They know that by heart because they've said no to borrowers constantly for that. You don't do that. You pay for long-term investments or for ordinary seasonal variations and things like that. But that's what the city is doing. It's paying for current expenses and wants to cover. Now there's another story, obligations owed to people who have sued the police department. That's just crazy. You don't borrow for those purposes.
Yeah, and back pay for firefighters, right? That's among the spend for the sale of these, the proceeds from the sale of these bonds. And the thing too, like there's an op-ed on this over at City Journal, which is a good outlet. But the silver lining of this is that it's going to make it more difficult for Brandon Johnson to win a second term. So, I mean, can you point to someone? It's not Bill Conway, Daddy's little boy Bill. Can you point to someone who is serious about the city's finances that's currently in office? Who is talking about this, other than us?
Right. Fortunately, some of the talking heads are beginning to talk about the crisis in present tense, like Ken Griffin, our expat billionaire. It is a failed city-state. It is a failed city-state. We don't have to talk, but our civic leaders and politicians are still pretending otherwise.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, like the idea, like, if we do this all the time, if we just get rid of Brandon Johnson, then if we just get rid of Lori Lightfoot, then and it's just on and on and on, rather than addressing sort of the underlying structural infirmities of what we're attempting to do here.
Exactly right, and I pity the next mayor, however good he is. It's going to be a mess.
I saw that the Chicago Teachers Union is facing a federal probe that will undoubtedly go nowhere over missing some audits. Missing audits is now a concern for the federal government.
Well, yeah, I will be interested to see the federal. There are two federal things going on here, Dan. You've got that, which stems from the lawsuit brought by a Chicago teacher to get these audits released going back to 2020. Congress got involved, and the federal government is now trying to force that, see what's going on. And you've got a second investigation announced in an exclusive article in the Daily Mail. They talked to the Department of Justice, who said that they are looking at the Pritzker controversy with Jenny Thornley, which you may recall.
Yeah, I remember that.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, I tried to raise the profile in that case, but anyway.
Yeah, that goes back. It's very odd that nobody has written about this, because the DOJ told Daily Mail expressly that they've got this probe going on, but hasn't been picked up in the regular press yet.
Something else, too, I just wanted to stick on the fiscal here, particularly with respect to property taxes. I thought it was interesting just getting out of Cook County for a moment. Will County voted to hold the line on property taxes, even though it's Dem-dominated. It was a close vote. And then this memo was put out. I mean, this just speaks to the mentality here. This memo was put out by the Will County Board Chairman's Chief of Staff after the vote. The Will County Board voted blah, 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 without appropriating sufficient revenue to meet the obligations. This legally dubious stuff leaves county government in a precarious position as they approved an unbalanced budget of, $2.8 million revenue shortfall. The shortfall does not account for future expenses, such as collective bargaining, that the county board has already approved. This irresponsible approach threatens the county with bond default, credit downgrades, expensive short-term borrowing, and layoffs. It leaves the future fiscal condition of the county imperiled, and so on and so forth. Sort of the chiding of the county board for holding the line on property taxes. Now, I mean, to some extent, I'm sympathetic with this chief of staff because, hey, you want to hold on to Texas, fine, but then make the associated cuts, because this is exactly what the state of Illinois has done for time immemorial. It's like, oh, okay, well, we won't do what we wanted to do because it's not politically sellable at current time, so we'll just sort of throw this meatball sundae through the legislative body and move on, and we'll figure it out after the fact. But so in a sense, I like what this chief of staff is doing, because he's basically calling out the board and saying, you got to do that. It's easy to say no to taxes, or it should be, particularly with the heat that Will County voters are providing on property tax bills. But hey, how about you do the other side of the ledger too, which is to reduce the spend, to reduce the overhead. So I like that he's calling him out on that. But by the same token, I wish he'd just say exactly that. Look, that's fine. I'm all for it. Don't chide them about raising revenue to continue to status quo spending. Chide them about do the difficult work of reducing the size and expense of Will County government. And that could go for any county government, and certainly the state government here.
Yeah, that's the same in Chicago. They're still debating, should we look at these spending cuts that were proposed by E&Y? One of our congressmen had an op-ed saying, it's not too late to do spending cuts. Oh, really? It's not too late to do spending cuts? Of course it's not too late. It wasn't too late 15 years ago. You should have done this. And they wait until a crisis, and that's. I haven't seen that Will County story yet, but that sounds like that guy's spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get your reaction to. I mean, just everybody is talking about this as the preeminent story, and should be, because public safety is the preeminent responsibility of government at every level. And there was this profile piece on Bethany McGee, that poor young woman that was lit on fire by that career criminal. And it just recalling the lines of argumentation that have been advanced by JB and BJ and the entire Democrat power structure. I don't think we can play them enough. I mean, this is just 3 months ago where Brandon Johnson was screeching in the direction of what he's always promoted, even though he, sort of middled the issue over the weekend after the shootings outside the Chicago theater. But this is the attitude of the political power structure here at the city and state level, and I just don't think it can be restated enough times.
The fact of the matter is we are driving violence down on this city, and we're using every single resource that's available to us. Jails and incarceration and law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities.
Do you think that, in the circles in which you travel and communicate, Mark, do you think this is penetrating not just about Brandon Johnson, but just about the whole culture here? Sanctuary City, Safety Act, the identitarian politics played by Cook County judges, the whole thing?
I sure think so, Dan. The Pritzker administration, Brandon Johnson, they are just totally out of sync on so many issues with the public at this point. Hopefully they're going to wake up to that. And Pritzker's response, by the way, of course, was, maybe we need to tweak the Safety Act. Well, the public figured this out. They were overwhelmingly against the Safety Act in the first place. And that's part of the problem here. And Johnson's, of course, flat wrong. You lock up criminals, that works. And we got to start locking up repeat criminals, and we haven't been doing that.
Yeah, and by the way, lest we just put this on BJ, I can't stand when people do that. Don't forget, this was JB just a couple of months ago, hamming it up for the Jimmy Kimmel show, being his correspondent, walking along the Chicago River in a vest because the whole thing's a big joke. Violence in Chicago is a big joke. It's going down. Everything's fine. This was J.B. Pritzker offering his file report for the Kimmel show.
J.B. Pritzker reporting from war-torn Chicago. As you can see, there's utter mayhem and chaos on the ground.
The police say a 14-year-old is dead and 8 others injured.
Yeah, and then the clips in of the actual utter chaos on the ground that he was lampooning. That's the tone deafness that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a good example where I think the public has figured this out. That was ridiculed so often. I saw in comments and emails I got where they go to, he's got a security detail and they walk along the lakefront, which is heavily patrolled and very safe, and blah blah blah. It's not typical of Chicago. That whole interview should have just been ridiculed to daylights out of it. So
it should be disqualifying, honestly.
Yeah.
JB Pritzker. Mark Glennon, he is the founder of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Mark, as always. Appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care. And Mark joins us in the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by extending their wholesale prices on classic MyPillows.